friends, and welcome to Annie's Pink Chair, where we bring real, raw, relevant issues to the table from a woman's perspective. Relationships. We talk about relationships on this show. We talk about faith and the supernatural. And I am so honored and excited to share with you about a guest that we have today that is a phenomenal woman of God, Kat Hoffman, survivor leader and victims advocate. Cathy Hoffman is a victims advocate with nearly a decade of experience split between the medical and communications industries. Born in Klamath Falls, Oregon, Hoffman relocated to North Utah in 2001. She started her career in the communications industry in 2011, working with learning and development to create training programs for businesses across the country. At 19, Hoffman was abducted, drugged, and trafficked across state lines. She was held captive for nearly 3 months before finally escaping captivity on November 22nd of 2013. Kat, what an honor to have you here today. I am so excited that you're in the studio with us and you're going to share who you are. First of all, I love your name. Okay. It's like, I'm jealous. I told you that when I first met you. Hey, I told my mom when I was a little girl, I want to be called Kat. But who is Kat? Who is Kat?
Well, I'm 27. I'm soon to be 28 here. I live in Utah currently. If I'm not at work, which I love, I do work within the health and wellness industry. And I absolutely love it. I have a great team of people that I work with, and really all you could wish for in a work family. When I'm not there, I'm helping out with smart defense and teaching other survivors self-defense lessons, or I'm hanging out at home in my PJs, being completely immersed in either a book or a movie or a series or whatever my ADHD fancy has caught on to that day.
I love it, dude. I'm your ADHD sister. Okay, I got you.
I love it.
Girl, what happened to you? I saw when I first met you, I was reading part of your story and I just, someone like you, 19 years old. Now, we always hear about human trafficking from this perspective of, the minors, but I don't always hear stories that are powerful like yours, where you still were a teenager. Can you tell us what happened when you were 19 years old? What was going on?
Yeah. So at 19 years old, I was recently reacquainted with my family. We had kind of just gotten back on good terms. I started going back to church. I'm adopted, so my connection to my family was very important to me.
Yeah.
And having not had them in my life and been in this position where that's all I'd ever desperately wanted ever since I was little and I was very first adopted. You'll pretty much do just about anything to keep that connection. And so at 19, after not having had any contact with them for a while, they had dropped me off at a homeless shelter and said, see you later. So I was on my own from that point forward. I had kind of achieved all of these things that I didn't think would be possible, just having been in the system and having been told that, you're never going to amount to anything if you don't play by the rules of what we think you should play by, from the various treatment programs that I was in as a teenager. So had my own apartment. I recently reconnected with my family, going to church every Sunday again with them and Sunday dinners. And so I had a roommate. And at the time, she, like many, many young women and many, I don't know who doesn't partake in online dating. It's really become the norm. But this was, almost a decade ago, where it was still it was newer. It was significantly newer. So she accepted a message from a guy online and he said, hey, how are you? And she accepted that message and decided to invite him over for dinner. And in inviting him over for dinner, I became the target of a human trafficker. So he abducted me, drugged me, and trafficked me across state lines.
Wow.
And I went from the girl that, I'd never been kissed. I was saving myself for marriage, and that the Christian ideals that I'd really been raised to believe in, I clung to that. And I was sold for $4,000 to a man that was old enough to be my grandfather.
Wow.
So that was my introduction to human trafficking and what that meant. And this is from a very safe area in a nice part of Utah that this happened. And all it took was a message being sent on a dating app. And how many of us do that? We accept a Facebook request or an Instagram message, or, we reach out to someone because their friend. And that's all it really takes to go from 0 to 60 very, very quickly if you're, unsure of the world that you're within.
Wow. Do you think your roommate, did she have any discernment or any red flags? Did she just, oh, hey, come over for dinner? And then he was like, he came over and then he just targeted you.
Right. So he was older, I believe at the time, maybe 43 or 45, British, very, very charming. And
wow.
Incredibly adept at manipulating people to have him viewed as this really nice, non-threatening person.
Right. And who doesn't love like a British accent? I mean, girl,
exactly.
Come on.
Exactly.
What is his name? Gary, the guy from the 50s and 40s. He had a very charming accent. I forget his name. Gary. Anyway, he's a famous actor. So do you think it made you trust him? And also you have this background of a lot of trauma.
Yeah. So having this background, in trauma, what I really like to tell people is your body knows when you're sitting in front of a predator. Your body's going to tell you when that happens. And that's the queasiness in your stomach and the sweatiness, in your hands. And it's all of these things that go up that we as women from a very early age learn that it's not okay to listen to our gut, because we're not here to make other people uncomfortable. We're to be seen as beautiful decoration and, on a nice guy's arm. And, so for the most part, we teach our girls to be seen and to be beautiful, but not to pay attention to our instinct and our intuition. So I knew I was in trouble the second he walked into my home. Physically, I knew that, but because of the kind of conditioning that I'd had my entire life to say, well, you don't want to offend them. You don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right.
I didn't say anything. I went along with it.
Yeah. And so was there some sort of like father figure in that person, or some sort of like person? Did you feel like this person could possibly help you or protect you in any form, or was that not part of that at all?
No, that oddly enough, not at first, as I grew to have an understanding of what it would take for me to humanize myself to him, and as the parts of him that, because monsters aren't monsters all the time, right? They're capable of having normal conversations, intelligent conversations. And there were parts of him that were clearly incredibly intelligent, mixed in with the beatings and the sexual assault and the stripping away of everything that made me human. So he had moments where he was incredibly caring and incredibly tender even. But those, of course, came after a severe beating or being drowned. And, brought back over and over again. But
wow.
from the get-go, nearly, I knew that this was a monster.
I know that you probably were scared for your life. Like, how did you deal with like having the potential of being drowned to death? And you even mentioned before, when you told your story, about being put in a cage.
Yeah. So that's where I woke up. I was drugged and I woke up naked in a cage, in a dog cage. And I mean, among other atrocities, I was hung from a beam on the ceiling and just suspended there. And I would just be left there for hours. I mean, there are so many disgusting, depraved things that were done to me to dehumanize me, that at some point, I mean, you'll go through all of the stages you possibly can. You try to reason with them. You try to beg with them. I mean, you do everything you can to appease them. But when that doesn't work and they still beat you anyway, that turns to rage. And that rage, you start reasoning with God. You will bargain and you'll beg until you don't have anything else. I promise God, if you just get me out of this, that I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll be a better person. I'll be better. But I got to a point where I was so miserable with my physical condition, what was being done to me, that the rage bubbled over and I told my trafficker to kill me. I screamed at him, just kill me, because death would have been better than what I was going through.
Right. So how did you eventually get away from this monster? Because he clearly is and was a monster. Like, I can't.
So he was an alcoholic. That was one of the first things. I mean, I've never watched anyone able to consume that amount of alcohol and not die. He would go through, 12 packs in a couple hours, vodka, wine, whatever. I mean, incredible amounts of alcohol. And so he brought a bottle of vodka down one night and starts talking to me about his ex-wife. And at this point, I knew that if I trashed his ex-wife along with him and said how horrible she was and got him thinking and drinking about it, that I might have a little bit of control, because I wasn't cuffed to the bed. So we're drinking together. He thinks I'm drinking. I think I had maybe about a shot and a half.
Right.
And then the rest I was pouring for him and talking to him. And so he throws me on the bed, tries to rape me again, but he can't because he's too drunk. And then he called me a worthless,
Yeah.
Fill in the the word.
Right.
And passed out on top of me. So after I was pretty sure he was passed out, I kind of wiggled my way out from underneath, and I ran to see if the door was still unlocked, which it was. And I ran back down and I grabbed the bottle of Grey Goose and I smashed it over his skull, and I ran for my life.
Whoa. And so you got away.
I got away.
And did you run like fast, or did you try to hide somewhere first? Because I just can't imagine. Dude, I would have been so scared, Kat.
Oh, I was terrified. I mean, I remember I had little shards of glass in my hands. And so and my hands were, so I was reaching for the door, like just in panic mode and autopilot almost. And for no other reason other than divine intervention, the bag that he had me pack with all of my clothing, with my cell phone, with my purse, everything was right there at the top of the stairs, sitting there for me. So my phone was still charged. So I figured out where I was and I called a shuttle and got onto the shuttle and messaged my family saying, I'm coming home. I'm going to explain everything when I get there, but do not answer any phone calls, because I knew that he was going to go after them, because he'd had all of my social media. He had complete control over my digital life while I was his prisoner.
Yeah.
So,
and that's so awesome. I feel like God intervened, and maybe he didn't know you were going to try to escape that day, but he had everything in a certain place, and it's like God set that up for you. And I'm so happy that you're safe now. And girl, you are such a superwoman. Like, I was going to say a beast, like you're a warrior. And this brings me to that segue into your story of what you're doing now, not just your job, but what I think that you love right now, because you're so interested in helping people that have no self-defense and no agency or boundaries, and they don't know how to take care of themselves if someone does try to attack them, if they meet someone online. And so you're doing something called smart defense, which it makes sense. It's smart and it's defense. Can you tell us about how that happened and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I reached out to the Elizabeth Smart Foundation in 2019 to just see what I could do to help with what they do and their cause and their mission. And that was the time that I decided I was going to come forward and take my name back and stop hiding and share my story. And so they gave me the ability to do that through their podcast, Smart Talks. And then asked me, hey, would you be interested in being involved in Smart Defense? So Smart Defense takes, survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence through an 8-week, very small class size course on the basics of how to defend yourself in realistic situations. So if someone's got you up against a wall and they're choking you, how do you get out of that? Here's 3 different ways. If someone is on top of you and how easy it is for even, a small woman to be able to completely disarm her attacker and use what we have, which is, an incredible amount of strength in our lower bodies to really do the job and take care, allow it to take care of ourselves. So, and it's incredible because this is a program that was created for trauma survivors by survivors themselves. So it's trauma, they're very trauma aware and very, big on making you feel empowered and safe, but also giving you realistic, things that might very well happen and how to get out of them. So it's just a really life-changing thing when you've had your ability to say no, when you've had that stripped away from you, you've had your physical boundaries violated in the way that survivors have. We don't feel like we have a lot of power and control over our bodies. And a lot of that stems from PTSD, and a lot of it stems from our body just remembering that trauma. And so finding a new way to allow other people to physically enter your life in a way like what sparring does when you're on the mat with another person. That's kind of reaffirming that human touch is not bad. And it's with a bunch of girls that you're going to be doing an incredible amount of cardio with that you won't even realize you're doing cardio, but you're going to walk away wondering, oh my gosh, what's that muscle called? I didn't know I had it. So I encourage all women really starting early. If I had the tools that I have now to defend myself in the situations that I was put in as a teenager and as a young adult, I think my outcome would have been very different. And so I hugely and massively encourage people to really look into that as something that you need to make part of your daily life.
Yeah, that is so amazing. I took some self-defense training when we first opened our first Destiny House. We brought this group out and Kat, I got triggered. Teaching how to kick someone off you when they're on top of you, choking you was really tripping.
Right.
I mean, they used a real guy and it triggered me. But I just want to commend you for doing that and for pushing through. Annie, I'm pretty sure you had triggers as you were learning. I mean, it's natural, right? I mean,
exactly. Even someone that, my trauma, what happened to me, it's been almost a decade. But when someone's on top of you, it is a very real trigger. And even me, during all of the recovery and the healing that I've done, I still had that happen to me. And that's normal. That's okay. There's no panic attack that's going to make what you're doing any less worthwhile. And it's okay for you to have it. And that's an incredible thing about the women that we do Smart Defense with is I can go in there and I can ugly cry and have my panic moment and be triggered and then get right back up and know that I don't have to be embarrassed because the women in that room get it. They get it. So that's that emotional safety net that past and that foundation really has built for me.
That's really awesome. So do you think that this actually helps heal trauma? Your personal opinion?
Big time. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like it's a bookend to your story in a way, like, okay, now no one's ever going to try to kidnap me again.
Right.
Like,
Right.
it's like, it fits so well. And it's such a great position for you to have and to be an advocate and a spokesperson for these women. I think it's incredible. You're like this beautiful angel coming into their lives. Here, this is how you defend yourself. I would love to have this at Destiny House. I would love to look into that for the ladies. Hey, can I ask you, what advice could you give someone out there that is online dating or someone that's potentially being groomed for trafficking? What advice could you give them if you could look back that somebody should have given you?
Absolutely. So I always tell people, listen to your gut. That's something that for a really long time, society, for lack of a better means, has told us to ignore, because listening to our gut a lot of the time requires us to be a little bit confrontational and ask hard questions that people don't want to have asked and they don't want to answer. So being able to make that clear-headed choice of, okay, my gut's telling me something is off, and making the decision of, do I need to explore the reason or should I just listen? And unfortunately, a lot of the time we choose, the hard road of, I'm going to find out because they probably didn't mean it like that. Or I'm sure that's not how it was intended, or I misunderstood them. So really being able to say, no, I know what I like. I know what I want. I'm not going to settle for less. And, holding that your self-worth isn't about who thinks your hair looks nice or, the nice date that they take you on. It's a lot more research that you need to do into who you are and exactly what you want. And then my other part of that would be know your limits. We are so completely absorbed in our social media and, our Instagram and all of those things that, especially in the time of pandemic, really get in the way of actual human interaction. Being around other people, and especially because a lot of us are working from home, it kind of numbs us to the cues and the triggers that we look at that show us whether or not a person is being honest. We don't look at body language anymore. We're reading a text message or looking at a 5-second, Snapchat. So being able to discern whether or not someone is honest is something that you really have to be aware of.
That is so good. That's a good word. Now, the last thing I wanted to ask you was, how can people get a hold of you? Then I have one more thing, I promise, after that. If they want you to come teach, share, get a hold of the Smart Defense training, and just you in general.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach me at my Instagram handle, which is at the Angel in the Marble. My email is also listed in that profile, which is my last name, my first and my last name, Cathy Hoffman 151@gmail.com. And then other than that, if you want to take a look at the ElizabethSmartFoundation.org /Smart Defense, that's a great way to look at class schedules to see what areas they're available in. I know we just opened up a location in St. George. We also have one in Charlie Square. So the program is spreading. So yeah, just take a look.
That's so great. Okay, the last thing. Do you feel that Jesus and Christ, God and Christ helped you with some of your healing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My entire existence, what happened to me, every single step that I've gone through, many times in my life, I felt completely and utterly alone, and that devastating isolation that comes with that spiritually and emotionally. Through all of the things that have happened to me, and especially my escape, that was done directly with divine intervention. And we talk about God a lot as this, mysterious biblical figure who parted the Red Seas and all of those older miracles, but we don't talk about living miracles and ones that actually happen to us and happen pretty regularly. My entire existence and me being alive here today is an example of that. My trafficker drowned me and brought me back. And during the time that I was drowned, if you will, I had a very, very clear conversation with the creator that I thought that I knew because of the Bible stories I'd been told growing up. And the creator that I met is a very, very, very different God than the one I was raised to believe in. My outlook and my purpose is because of him and because of what he's allowed me to survive. He told me that he wasn't done with me yet. And he told me that I had to go back and endure a little bit more. But one of the reasons that I'm able to sit here on this platform talking about this is because of God and because of what he has done in my life and continues to do in my life. And because he gives me the strength to scream and say no and to force change so my daughters don't have to sit there and their daughters don't have to sit there 50 to 100 years from now and wonder where they lost their voice in history. So God is an incredibly important part of my story and why I'm here.
Girl, I'm okay. I feel like we need to do part 2. So we will schedule that, okay? Because you could talk all day and I could just listen, because you sharing it warms me. And not only that, I'm like getting ready to cry again, but I'm so happy that you're here and you are a fire. Like, I feel like you're this fire in the middle of the desert where there's no light, but you come blazing through and everyone's like, follow that fire. Now, probably because of your hair as well, but Kat, you are amazing, girl. And I just want to thank you for your time and your advocacy and your gift of you and what you've done in your life to overcome and become a victor over trafficking. We love you and we'll see you next time on the pink chair. Okay?
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Annie. Bye.
Hi, dear friends. Annie here. Did you know that we have a nonprofit that serves sex trafficking victims? And how did this come about? Well, that was so simple for me because I am a former trafficking victim of more than a decade in Las Vegas. I had 2 different traffickers that almost destroyed me and ravaged my soul. But by the grace of God, I sit in this chair today and I can testify that Jesus is real and that my complex trauma and all the pain that I endured got totally solved by the love of God. And I wanted to share this today because we are in very desperate need of donations at our nonprofit. Now, our nonprofit not only does outreach for victims that are hurting, that need to get away from their traffickers, that need resources, but we have a home called the Destiny House where ladies can dream, discover, and develop into God's perfect destiny He has planned for them. Please partner with us. Your donation is tax deductible and you're going to be saving a life.